Well, there is no way out to have an acute sense of loss when visiting formerly familiar coastal destinations after Katrina. Houses gone, favorite shops gone, landmarks gone, whole streets gone. Walt Grayson is here to tell us about what one popular town has done to reinstitute one of the most popular activities. What's going on in Bay St. Louis, Walt?
John, I tell you, the whole coast is sort of like seeing the ruins of Windsor moved into the 21st century and multiplied like 1 billion times. It's just phenomenal. And I've always had this sense of loss at Windsor, and I just can't wrap words around what happened on the coast. But at Bay St. Louis, one of the favorite activities that me and my wife went to down there was their second Saturday art walk. And this is something that they've reinstituted already. It's not so much building a building back into place, but building an activity back into place, which I think is just as important. Take a look. Well, this is the way it's going to be for a while on the coast for any who were familiar with it before Katrina. Seeing it now and remembering it the way it used to be. I'm that way particularly about Bay St. Louis, and that's not to take away anything from any other coastal town or city, but I just happened to have discovered Bay St. Louis on one of the most spellbinding days on which it could have been discovered, one of its second Saturday art walks, first time I'd ever been there. Just happened to drive in that day. Second Saturdays were days when the shops emptied out onto the sidewalks and the streets filled up with people. And during the warm months, live bands set up here or there, so there was music everywhere.
Now do you remember when we met? That's the day when I knew you were my pet.
Now, maybe to the people who lived there, Bay St. Louis was just the place where they lived, but to me and my wife, it had a dream-like charm to it. I realize a great deal of that may have been because the town's about a 3-hour drive from where we live, and you don't travel that far to end up in a place just like where you left from. So maybe we were primed to be expecting something else, and maybe we have imposed a little more enchantment on the town than was really there. But I don't think so. The old town residential streets were lined with seaside cottages, and the town was a pearl straight from the sea, as far as we were concerned. But there was something else to Bay St. Louis before Katrina. A spirit, an energy. It's not one of those things your Chamber of Commerce can sit down and propose to implement and pass in a meeting and enact into being. It just happens at some places, unexplainably and spontaneously. And it was happening at Bay St. Louis. Artists and artisans were gathering. People were discovering them and coming there to collect their works, coming there to be with other people who were there just to be there. A stranger could feel they were a part of something on the second Saturday art walks when the town went outdoors and everybody came. Katrina hit the last weekend of August. By the second Saturday of September, roads were clear enough to get to the coast in Bay St. Louis, but there was not enough left of the downtown section for an art walk anymore. Beach Boulevard was no more. The street had been ripped apart by the churning wall of water that accompanied Katrina, the same wall of water that smashed the buildings and mangled the town. The quaint shops were gutted, and Old Town was covered with mud and sand, and cars were swept into piles. And when we first revisited our little town, I simply couldn't get my senses to wrap around what I was seeing. I still haven't found the proper words to express the loss that is the coast. Who could have thought anything like this could happen? Such massive and complete destruction. The old days were suddenly irretrievably gone, as if someone had died. And it doesn't take an engineer to mentally calculate how long it will take to rebuild and begin to even remotely approach the way it used to be. Who sang the old song, "Those Were the Days"? Oh, I could think of her name in a minute if I tried, but never mind. The fact that I've forgotten just adds to what I'm trying to say. The song says we thought those days would never end. And not only did they end, but they ended suddenly and out of nowhere. And now I can't even remember who it was who sang and warned us that these things can happen. Well, all is gone except the spirit of those old days. Whatever it was that drew people to Bay St. Louis on second Saturdays to begin with was quenched only that 1 month of September. By the second Saturday of October, the second Saturday art walk was on again in Bay St. Louis. They only missed 1 month. Someone emailed me the still shot of that first art walk after Katrina. That October gathering was mostly outdoors and vastly abbreviated from what had been before. But the important thing was this was after, and yet second Saturday still came around, like the Who's waking up after the Grinch had stolen Christmas, and yet it was still Christmas. Now, I realize that Second Saturday Art Walk is a small and trivial thing compared to the vast tracts of ruins that were where people lived and worked and had life. But it's a step, not back in time, but forward toward putting things back to where we want them to be. A baby step into the future of trying to make some things like they ought to be once again.